Okay, we are live, my friends. It's about to go down. Ugh. So, I have here several pieces of information. I have a whole bunch of websites. I'm going to pull down some links for you, so that way you can go to these web pages as I navigate to and fro. And we shall begin with first speaking to why I picked 2024. Obviously, all the white heavens have some sort of connection to each other. And in this one, we're going to stress, or not even stress, we're just going to press on the fact of what language and what culture our ancestors, believed ancestors, were around and were subjected to, and ultimately, to a degree, they amalgamated. Now, the first phrase I'm going to read to you, I'm going to pull up this thing right here. It's called Realm of History. I'm going to bring that link to y'all here in a second. Cannot stand these bright web pages. It is what it is. Burning my eyes up. Here we go. What I wanted to read to you was this line. You got to go down to the 23rd. It's like 30 phrases. You got to go down to number 23. And it reads, Vade retro me satana, which means get off my back, Satan. And I'm going to read the backdrop to it. It was of Gospel of Mark 8:33. The Latin phrase, listen, what? The Latin phrase is derived from the Vulgate, and in the narrative is presented as being spoken by Jesus to Peter. According to the historical estimation, the Gospel of Mark was written during the 1st century, at least before 90 AD, possibly between 66 and 70 AD, which makes it the earliest known written gospel, through the authorship still remain, though the authorship still remains anonymous. There we go, right there. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to pick up on a what's called the Greece timeline. And I have my Apocrypha in the book of the Maccabees, and we're going to pick up, we're going to read a few different things, but the first thing we're going to read about, we're going to skip down into this Grecian timeline, and we're going to skip way down to about 335 BCE, right? And we're going to skip down to Philip II is assassinated, and Alexander the Great becomes king of Macedonia. This is roughly 336 BCE. Now, I'm going to read everything up until Alexander conquers Egypt, and then I'll read everything afterwards as it pertains to why it's so important that we establish that the Latin culture is the culture that our people were influenced by, and it was something that they practiced. And not just this, when people tell you, see, this goes back to something that where you see these marble statues, these new pristine marble statues, sometimes even exquisite. The problem is that everything back in the day was in stone. We're not going to go into the Genesis, because it's not because we don't have the time, it's because we've already read it, and we all know that the Most High God established that there are rare stones and rare minerals on the earth that all people know about. So to believe or to think that marble and not stone would be anything that what these statues are made of. And just imagine Sargon of Akkad. His statue head is half the head. The other half of the head is smashed in. But it's made of stone. Now, why I bring this to bear is because they want us to believe that a Caucasian people, an albinoid people, whatever they want to be considered, a troglodyte people, they want us to believe that they are the Grecians and the Romans, and that they, in fact, were the ones who influenced their culture upon the world. The issues with this are several things. And don't worry, I'll get to them as it pertains to what is important. We'll talk about the Gauls in a moment. But Alexander becomes the king in 336 BCE, excuse me. And let me go ahead and get this timeline out for you, because I don't know why I didn't take that and copy that for you guys. Copy these other two. This is the third one. I apologize. It would be beneficial to go ahead and go to that. I'm not doing all the screen share stuff. Don't have the patience to get this password cracked off this laptop and go through a whole bunch of other trouble. Anyway. 336 BCE, Alexander becomes the king of Macedonia. 335 BCE, Aristotle founds the Lyceum in Athens. 334 BCE, Alexander the Great defeats Persian army at Granicus River in Anatolia. Stop right there. The Persians are a black people. The Greeks are a black people. Now, what we're about to get to and read here in a moment is everything I'm saying is going to start to make more sense. It's just we have to work our way to 2024. People are like, why 2024, Meech? Well, we have to get to them getting to slavery. We have to build our way up to slavery. If I just try to throw it all at you, it might not make sense. So let's give some history to it. Real base history, but understanding who were the pillars for these things to take place. 333 BCE, Alexander the Great defeats the Persians at Issus. 332 BC, Tyre catapults to Alexander after siege. 331 BCE, Alexander invades Egypt. City of Alexandria, founded in Egypt. Alexander defeats Persians and Gaugamela. Stop right there. We're going to read something out of the book of the Maccabees. And the book of the Maccabees starts just like this. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians, and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up, and he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries, and nations, and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things, he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them, while he was yet alive. He did that so that way they wouldn't fight with one another, or tried to keep them from fighting with one another. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died. And his servants bare rule, everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth. Stop right there. We're going to keep reading for a half a second, but I just need it to be understood that evils were multiplied in the earth. Now, we're going to keep reading because I need y'all to hear that even back then, the Romans were a relevant factor. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus, the king who had been a hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. Now, I know you guys might be thinking, why am I stressing this so much? But we have to really establish that Latin culture is the culture. Now, before I leave this page, and if you're on this page with me, we're going to scroll up to the 500 BCE area, okay? And we're going to find the exact, where are we at? The Gauls invade. I don't want to say it's around then. It might be a little bit before and after that, but it's somewhere around then. The Gauls come down and invade and pretty much get bing bopped up. And that's actually something that's worth noting. I just gotta find it. Not Pythagoras, no. Might be a little bit after. Where is it at, y'all? But don't worry, this isn't the only piece of evidence that we have to prove that Latin, whether Roman or Greek, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I need everybody to get that out their head. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I was wrong. The Gauls come a little bit later. So they're 279 BCE. Excuse me. I don't know where I got the 500 from, but they're all numbers to me. Invasion of Greece by Gauls, 279 BCE. So we're going to go to another website real quick. And it's the and don't worry, I'll pull it up for you, and you guys will have access to it as well. Just in case you need to see it. I'm not gonna lie to you about what I'm seeing. One moment. And it's the it's pretty much like Roman history, you know, a brief Roman history, history of the Franks in a sense, but it's an overview of really. So I'm going to pull up the rise of the Franks, and then I'm going to come back to that here in a moment, so we can understand what's exactly going on. What's popping, bro? What's up? I'm just sitting here. We're going to get it really, really, really going. 2024, y'all. So let's just talk about that for half a moment. All right. I know we're supposed to be here for 400 years. I'm contending that based on what the book of Enoch has written about the moon being wayward five days out of a year compared to the sun, 364 days for the sun, 359 for the moon. So what happens is that whether you want to look at basic modern history and you want to say, well, they're off sometime, let me read the book of the Maccabees to you so that way you guys understand the difference in the time between the Greeks, the real Greeks, and the people that call themselves Greeks. Okay, so give me one moment. I gotta take it back again one more time. Oh, Snikey's bookmark fell out. Need that. One moment. And there came out of them a wicked root, verse 10 of chapter 1 of the Maccabees. Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus, the king who had been a hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. Why is that so important? I just read to you that Alexander took the throne in 336 BCE. So 137 and 336 are a 200-year difference, just on the quick math. So if there's a 200-year difference in how they're telling the time, first off, how could you really be the Greeks or Romans and your years now? I want you to really think about this. What would prompt, if you're really the Greeks and really the Romans, what would prompt you to change your time? Because it's saying one thing here, but other history says another thing. But I'm going to have to take the word of the Septuagint, because guess what? It's a Greek canon. So why would the Greeks lie on themselves? That makes no sense. Right. So not only do we have fallacies within the timelines of how they perceive the history, and understand these are the same two characters. The guy that I just read about doing all that stuff is the same dude. It's worth noting that Alexander the Great was known to be friendly towards the Jews. Just something to throw out there. And another reason how we know that Alexander the Great wasn't hated by the Jews is because it was common practice. Learned this from, Brother Scribe, but it was common practice that when Alexander took over the kingdoms, he let the people keep their customs and their ways, just that they pay tribute. So it makes sense, some of the things that I'm about to read to you, that the Greeks would do later on after the fact. Okay? We're going to skip through a few different things, but I need y'all to understand the atmosphere never changes. What I'm about to read to you never changes. Let me go ahead and get to it real fast, to where it talks about strangers inhabiting the cities. And it's a very, 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 it's not a small piece, but they, I don't know how you say it. It matters, but it's not the biggest thing. Okay, we'll say it like that. And we're pulling right up on it. And give me a moment. And bang, bang, bang. And bang, bang, bang. Where is the strangers inhabiting to her, cuz? Give me one more second. Where is the strong walls at? Give me one moment. It might be on this next page. I'll read that too, but we need to really get to the part where it tells us that that strangers, people who are not the people, they're within the walls, right on? Like that matters. That's a huge thing. One second. Here we go. Kept looking over it. I kept reading it. I kept seeing it, but I kept looking over it. Verse 33 of chapter 1 of the Maccabees. Listen to this and just understand what's going on. But we're going to go back 8 verses. So verse 25. Therefore, there was a great mourning in Israel, in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned. The virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. After 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them. But all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much of the people. And when he had taken spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and the walls thereof on every side. So he tore down everything. But the women and children they took captive, and possessed the cattle. Then they builded the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. Stop right there. If y'all think that it ever changed from what I just read to you, no matter what triumphs Judas Maccabeus has, you have to remember, he invites the Romans in. Now, I'm going to read some stuff to y'all real quick, and I want y'all to think, is this how the Romans actually beat the Greeks and overtook them? I'm going to read some stuff, and I'm going to insinuate what it is that I'm trying to say. Give me a moment. It skips way forward to all the way to 350 Common Era, right? But I'm going to hit you with something. Early history of the Franks. The Franks inhabited the delta lands at the mouth of the Rhine and Scheldt rivers. In about 350, they became Roman Foederati or Confederati and were allowed to occupy lands south of the Rhine. Stop right there. Now, I know it's hard for people to really imagine this, but they were already oppressed by the Romans, okay? You know what I mean? They were already oppressed. What's happening, bro? So the Gauls were already in their army, okay? So when we're reading the New Testament, you have to realize and recognize that many of the characters that are considered Romans or being called Romans may not actually be Romans. And when I say it, I'm saying it like to this. When you hear Paul interchange Roman to Greek and Greek to Roman being both Gentiles, listen to what I'm saying. He calls both of those races Gentiles interchangeably. The only presumable thing is that he's actually speaking on those that would have invaded in 279 BCE, so-called, right? So if you take it back 200 years, right, for the Greeks, it's not that it's you see what I'm talking about? It's way different. And this is why I don't see what they're saying to be true. A lot of what they're saying is totally off, and it's totally okay. Check this out. The ancestors spoke Greek. All of your ancestors spoke Greek. They spoke Latin while they were in the land once the Greeks took over. Now I'm gonna read something to y'all. Understand, Alexander is a black Grecian. Okay, he's a nig. Not only that, but he took over Egypt. Okay? Listen to get my point. The language they would have spoken in Egypt, oh, that's right. Outside of Aramaic would have been Latin. Come on, I'm trying to break it down to y'all. Y'all really see where I'm going with this? Do y'all see where your boy's at? Do you really see where I'm at right now? They spoke Latin in Egypt as well. Right. This is how it's possible for the Messiah and his parents to go down to Egypt after being in a place surrounded by the Greeks, right? Now the Romans, because they speak the language. Come on, I'm trying to break it down to y'all. Now let me read this to you so that way people understand why if Alexander, and I don't know what language people think that he spoke other than Latin. So if they took over Egypt, what you think that they're not going to push their culture there? They made Alexandria a capital there. So there's people who speak Greek in Egypt no matter how you cut that pie, no matter how the cookie crumbles, no matter how that cookie crumbles, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So when we read in the book of the Acts, chapter 21, verse 37. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, back to Paul, Canst thou speak Greek? Art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days madest an uproar and led us out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? Stop right here. Not only would him being Egyptian be null and void, but if he's a true Egyptian and he's saying that the only language I've ever heard you speak, listen to me, is Aramaic. I've never heard you ever speak Greek. That's what he's saying to him. Because he's seen this dude before, and apparently he's heard him talk. Right. Meaning that Paul spoke the native tongue of the what? Of the Egyptian people as well. Not just the Hebrew tongue. Why this is so important. Understand that Paul started talking from Aramaic or Hebrew or the Hebrew tongue and started speaking Latin. And dude didn't know. The guy's like, whoa, you can speak Greek? He's totally lost by the whole situation. Give me one moment. Let's just we'll leave that be because we're going to come back to that. One moment. And then Paul goes on to tell the man, obviously, that he's a Jew. Give me 1 second. Let me close this little window down. Bam. Blacks in ancient Britain. But we're going to skip through some stuff. I've already got that one for you, so you're going to have to skip through. And I just want to read where it speaks on how give me one moment. It pretty much tells about how white people took over all these places. You know what I'm saying? 1 second, one moment. Where was it at? Where is it at on this one? I don't want to get too carried away. But I just know that there's a little spot in here. And it's a tiny little phrase, but it pretty much tells us that they're not from Ireland. They're not from Rome. They're not from none of those places. They're not even German. Yo, they're not even Germans. Don't look. 1 second, give me one moment. I'm going to read this right here to you. It says, the Scots are themselves of black origin. Ireland was once known as Scotia Magna, and Scotland was called Caledonia until about the 3rd century AD, when a tribe invaded Caledonia and changed the name to Scotia. The Irish are said to have derived the name from Scotia from the daughter of an Egyptian pharaoh named Scota. Now, we're not going to get too carried away. Understand. This is their typical MO. I'm going to break it down to you. The $2 Indian white guy says one word in Native American, tells you that he's a native, forces folks to pretty much believe that and will go to war and die on that hill. White people tell you that they're Greeks and that they're Romans, and tell you that they were the barbarians who came out the caves to fight the Greeks and the Romans. Now, the question is how could you civilize yourself? That's the question. How can you civilize yourself, y'all? Am I tripping? So now we got to get to modern slavery just a little bit. We got to jump into the future. This is white heaven, y'all. We can't get boggled down on any one thing because we don't want them to just have one thing to fight against. They have to prove everything we're saying wrong. White heaven 2024. I'm willing to take a whole lot of gambles because it doesn't matter. I wasn't there the exact day and the exact time, whether the sun was up or down or going down when they started to use the clock. If 1619 was not truly 400 years ago, the only reason for that is because the way that we tell time is not truly telling time. Now, having said that, 2024 with the question mark. If 2024 is the end, have they realized just yet that they're not these people? Because we're going to keep piling on the evidence that not only did your ancestors, our ancestors, speak Latin fluently, apparently, right? But that Latin is the basis of the American culture. Now, give me one moment. There's 30 interesting ancient Roman sayings, that are Greek or whatever, right? Give me one moment. Carpe diem, seize the day, right? Now, the question is this. If they were really Romans and Greeks, why don't any of them speak actual Latin right now to this day? Think about that. And I'm not talking about watered down Spanish, okay? Or the watered down stuff that they're even speaking in Italy to this day. Petunia nervis belli. Money is the soul or sinew of war. Semper idem. But it would be, see, when they say semper, sometimes when they say siempre or simp, it all just depends. Once again, now we're talking the difference between true Greek, true Roman, right on, and what they think. But when they say semper or siempre fidelis or semper fidelis, always faithful, you understand? Once again, that's something that I learned in the Marine Corps, right? It's a Latin term. If they are really Latins, why don't they speak the language? Oh, let me tell you why. We're right now back at the rise of the Franks, right? And it says the Mediterranean, and it's a little map on the picture. It's the Mediterranean world in 451, or roughly that time. And it says, we have seen that the Roman Empire did not fall to murderous hordes of savage barbarians. The invaders who toppled the empire who toppled the empire in the West were relatively few in number, were Christians who long had contact with the Romans and had become sophisticated and partially Romanized by the contact. The Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Burgundians, and Vandals actually tried to restore and preserve much of Roman imperial culture and its institutions. But Justinian's conquest overthrew some of these kingdoms and weakened others. It was the least advanced and Roman Germanic tribes that formed the foundation of medieval European society, and the most important of these were the Franks. Now, did anybody else hear that? They tried to preserve the culture and institutions. Now, I'm going to read something to y'all. This is deep. Don't worry, I'm going to have the link for y'all here too. This is called The Early Histories of Germanic Tribes, right? Don't worry, y'all all heard this information before, but now it's starting to come all the way together, full circle. Paste. And if you guys want to go ahead and pull that one up on your screens, I'm going to pull it up right now on mine. And it's a green little screen, right? And I try to keep everything .edu, dot better than a .com when I can, but if you can't help it, this is what it is. The early history of the Germanic tribes. Now, obviously, this is their own interpretation of history, listen to what is said. The origins of the Germanic tribes is lost in the sands of time. What little is known is based upon linguistic evidence. The Germanic languages belong to the Indo-European family of languages that span Eurasia from Ireland onto the west to India on the east. The origin of Indo-European languages is believed to have been the merger in three peoples in the region between the Black Sea and Caspian Sea. This would be the Mediterranean, y'all. One of the three excelled in warfare, one in agriculture, one in metalworking. This is just what they believe. This is all make-believe. The synthesis of these three strengths produced a folk that spread east and west. The western branch splits into the ancestors of the Baltic, Celtic, and Germanic and the Slavic tribes, as well as a welter of smaller groups belonging, such as the groups as those of the Latins and Greeks. They're talking about the Romans and the Greeks. Listen, y'all. How could the people that sophisticated you, how are you where they came from? And you're not sophisticated yourself. Think about what I'm saying. I just read to y'all. They overcame the Romans by using the Romans' own tactics and pretty much biting the hand that fed them. Word? And they're trying to tell you right now on this that they're the fathers of the Roman and the Greek people. Is backwards, but still yet don't speak those languages. Come on. I know somebody hear me. The languages of the Germanic tribes underwent a systematic sound change that distinguished them from the languages of the other branches. Do you see how they tried to fix that? Because Latin doesn't sound anything like any of that cave language. Don't sound like no Oostengurgen, Friegen, nothing like that. You understand me? None of that sounds complicated or sophisticated. Sounds like a retard out of a cave. Let me go ahead and keep it pushing. By about 500 BCE, the Germanic tribes were occupying the southern shores of the Baltic and southern Scandinavia. Some of these 500 BCE now. Some of these Germanic tribes migrated and established control of new territories. Established control. Invaded places, y'all. They're not any of them. They're not Germans. They're not Irish. They're not any of that. And they're telling you that the origins of these peoples is lost in the sands of time. That makes zero sense. But somehow these are the people who are supposed to be something that are reminiscent of who is or what was. Does that make sense to anyone right now? That's a yes or no question, brothers and sisters. Does that make sense to you? That these characters who have been depicted in multiple movies to have been fighting themselves, does that make any sense to you? Hold on, let me break it down to you. How can the invader be somebody who looks just like you and you never heard of him? Think about it. Never ever heard of them. Right. It makes zero sense. Have y'all ever watched a movie? How do the barbarians have brown hair and brown eyes already? If they're pure stock, they should all have blonde hair, blue eyes. Once again, there's things in these movies that totally go against logic. Green eyes, red hair. They should have some sort of chimera look to them. They shouldn't look like a regular individual. Because people with brown hair and brown eyes look regular. Even when they got, pale skin. They still look more regular than their counterparts who don't have those things, who look totally inhuman. How many times has somebody seen somebody who's an old white dude with white hair and his blue eyes, and you're like, this dude looks dead, but he's living. Okay, then. Don't happen like that when you have brown eyes. And the color does fade when they get old. Anyway, not even going to talk about all that. I'm talking about, how does anybody believe put the Romans and the Greeks to the side. Use the Chinese. This is my favorite one. In older Chinese movies, a lot of the actors are darker skinned than the Chinese that are portraying the movies now. Now, what this is so important and indicative to is that the original people in the land were dark-skinned, aboriginal-looking people that were overrun by the Mongoloids. Now, the movies can't depict that because there's no more curly-haired aboriginal people running around China. You see what I'm saying? So the movie can't depict something. The Chinese of today can't depict what was. So how could a person who's supposed to have been, they're telling us that they're Greeks and that they're Romans, but none of them speak the language or even uphold and sustain their culture. But what did they do? They copied the idea of the Senate. Come on, let me read something to y'all. And it's just so deep, right? It's just so deep. One moment. Give me 1 second. Bam. Bam. Nope. Where are we at? I'm just looking for when Judas is about to send out to the dango Romans. There we go. And I'm gonna read what they were doing. How many? Where is it at? 300 and there we go. So I need y'all to listen to the where they got all the stuff from. And this is and I'm gonna pick up some stuff about the Greeks and the Romans. Where are we? Where do we want to start? Bam, bam, bam. Yet. All right, here we are. I'll just pick up from right there. Verse 14. Yet for all this, none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby. Moreover, they had made themselves a senate house wherein 320 men sat in council daily and consulting away for the people to the end that they might be well ordered. Now, I know y'all are trying to figure out where did they get the ideas of senates and all this stuff from? They copied it. Yo, literally, they just copied it. You understand what I'm saying? If they were really the Romans, see, they caused Roman culture to fall. I just read it to you. The Roman culture was toppled by these dudes, yo. The same cats. Let me go ahead and point something else out to you about these movies. Has anyone other than me ever noticed that when you watch a movie about the Greeks and the Romans, they always sympathize with the barbarians? Always sympathize with the barbarians. Why is that? I thought they were Greeks and Romans. Were? So why are you sympathizing with the barbarian? Doesn't even make sense. But let me put the scripture down for a second, the book of the Maccabees at least. And let me pull up some stuff from Brother Wickham that I wanted to touch on because it all makes sense. Now I can really work it in the smooth way. And one of these things I'm going to bring up last. So first and foremost, how he says he wanted to bring up how they didn't build the castles in Europe. Yo, check this out. Is it not a wonder that they have never built another castle? Think about that. They build buildings, but they can't build a nice-ass castle. That doesn't even make sense. It makes absolutely no sense if you really think about the logic of it. When's the last time a castle really fell down during an earthquake? Earthquakes happen all over the world. London Bridge went down, the castles didn't. You understand? They didn't build any of that stuff over there. That's why they don't know how to build it now. That's why they're like, marvel at the greatness of the white man who lived before all of us, because they knew how to do things that no one could. Right. Really, huh? That's what they want you to believe. Don't worry. This won't be the only rendition of this white heaven, because I'm gonna have to do another. We'll write it out for another hour, 2 hours, however long we get to write it out. But I want to pick up again and constantly pound away, and it'll take me a few days to really throw everything together with what I'm about to say tonight, because I don't think I'm going to be able to get to the Jewish part of all this, where the Jews come in. You know what I mean? I want to give them their own section, and I want to kind of merge together and show y'all how these so-called barbarians, the people who claim to be Germanic of descendancy to any degree. Did y'all hear though? It claimed fatherhood. They claim fatherhood for the Slavic, the Baltics, all these mother suckers. They're like we're the daddy to all of them. So how could they be the father to the Grecian culture, to the Roman culture? The Roman culture is established. Let me go ahead and read something to y'all real quick. No. Forget that. Grecian and Roman culture is established. I just need y'all to understand the timeline of Greece, right? Will tell you like this, though, real quick, because I might as well just pull it up because it's right here. Greece timeline. Now, they're talking whatever they're talking on this one 500 BCE, right? Now, I need you to understand here. 8,000 BCE. That's the Mesolithic period, right? That's the, people hunter-gathering, running around, just trying to live, right? By 7250 BCE, earliest evidence of burials found around Phrosity Cave in Argola, Greece. Listen, 7000 BCE, Neolithic period. Evidence of food-producing economy, simple hunt construction, and seafaring in mainland Greece and the Aegean. Stop right there. I need to read nothing else to you about the Grecians' timeline. Let me read this to you again. The origins of the Germanic tribes is lost in the sands of time. Yo, are y'all hearing that? Now, I know it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. It's a major deal. They'll tell you out of one side of their neck that, we're the fathers of the Greeks and of the Romans. Then they'll tell you at the other side of the neck that when we overthrew them, we had to fight to preserve that culture. Then they'll try to cover their own ass by saying this right here in the end. The languages of the Germanic tribes underwent a systematic sound change that distinguished them from the languages of the other branches. But if you're calling them all Germanic, then how could one Germanic tribe undergo a sound change that none of the other tribes know about? You're all around one another. That doesn't make sense. These dudes came down from the mountain. You're telling me that the Romans and the Greeks were just climbing mountains for no reason? No, these dudes came down from the mountains out of fucking nowhere and were up to no good. And when they started to get their asses kicked, they were pretty much, we put a leash on these things and said, teach them how not only to bathe and to clean themselves, teach them how to speak. Right. But they stayed speaking their own languages. Right. And the Romans and the Greeks figured we'll always be too strong we'll always be able to overpower them. But what their tribes did, which is nefarious, but to a degree intelligent, they spread out to the Roman and the Greek culture and got one to topple the other. They They were in lockstep. So even if they're just soldiers, they have a vested interest in bringing down one of those nations. Right. And so that way we can bring down this other one too. And we can eventually take over. Now, it took them a long time to do it. Long time. And like Andre said, they didn't come down. Look, they didn't come down when they try to make it seem like. This is why they came down. There were so many more of them too that they try to make light of it. Right? We're talking about pulses and pulses and pulses of people, men, women, children. Even if you want to just call them Gentiles, let's just say for this instance, men, women, children. Okay, and pulses and pulses. And most of these men are war fighters or would be. So now you're having this inadvertent amalgamation, and they will never tell you this. They will never tell you this. I want y'all to understand something. The sea people came and beat the hell out of everybody. They left their seed in some of those places, but they didn't. I need you to understand this. The sea people did this way before they knew who the Gauls were. And I can read Black in Britain to y'all to prove that some of those sea people were black. Right. Big, tall, black giants, which would give credence to why they were still black people when the white people got there. It's deep. It's deep. Sure, there's big white giants that were documented in history, but the giants I'm talking about are black giants. To key in on the level of these were black people when the white guys came around, and the white people had to be civilized. They had to be shown every little thing. Once again, how to wipe their back end, how to clean their front end. Okay? Right on. How to clean their neck, how to wash their face, armpit, all that stuff. They had to be shown these things. They didn't come down from those. I need y'all to get this into your heads. There's no way that they're going to tell you that they came from eating raw meat and now all of a sudden they got the internet. That's not how it goes. I'm sorry. And they still like to eat raw meat. So I'm befuddled that they maintained eating raw meat but couldn't maintain speaking Latin. And I know people are like, why are you stressing that? Tell me somebody you know who speak full-blown Latin right now, and I'll stop. And that's the point. Is because nobody wants to act as if these dudes are full-blown imposters. Now, White Heaven 2024. Because we do got a little bit of time. I think I'm going to talk about the Jews just a little bit. And then get ready to tie it together. There's a group in the book of the Maccabees. I'm just going to skim through it real fast and see if I can identify exactly when the Assyrians come into play, right? And it's not the fact that the Assyrians come. It's the fact that later on, and I just didn't look it up because I was going to do it later. Matter of fact, I'm just going to let that be. Because I'll do that again. Because that's what I want to do. I want to pick this up again and do another White Heaven real soon. It'll just be a part 2 to this. But this is so epic, y'all. And what I'm going to talk about with the Jews is how we know that they're based on the activities of these Assyrians. They are one of the set of the children's of this group of people, of the so-called Germanic people. Their Yiddish language is closer to German than it is Latin, let alone Aramaic. Starting to break it down, huh? Even the languages in Turkey and all those places, right? None of those, all those languages, right, are not so different from one another. That's what I'm trying to say to y'all. Is deep like that, to where now we're getting to see, okay, this group of people did this, and they took over this institution and took over the identity of these people. And then this other group, who's a related group to this group, came and took over the identity of these individuals while maintaining their own identity, i.e., the Turk Jews that become converts and the Turks that stay the Turks. Now, why this is so important is because eventually there comes to be in some characters called Cyrus Schofield and Fard Muhammad. And both of these individuals, both of their doctrines are used lockstep to keep not only the white-skinned population under control, but to a degree, the black-skinned population. Now, why this is all so important is because White Heaven 2024 leads us to the logical conclusion that if we can look at all these things and say, okay, these people are not the Greeks, and not only are they not the Greeks, they established what's called the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church is one of the things that they established trying to preserve Roman culture. But the Romans aren't Catholics. They're some sort of pagans. Right. So how does that make sense? Right. Once again, y'all, we're at a point and at a junction where we have to stand back and look at the information and say, does that actually truly make sense based on what I see and based on everything that I've ever heard and experienced? So they're telling us they want you to believe that the same people, listen, the same people who became converts, who fought not only in the middle of the crusade as a neutral party, being the Jews, and then fought as an aggressive party, being the Turks, i.e., the Turkish people, and that the so-called Germanic people, the Franks, who would have taken over the Roman culture and the Greek institutions, right? They then fight it out. They fight it out so that way they both can converge and destroy all literature in the Holy Land. Once they've established that they've destroyed all the literature and all the culture of the Holy Land, they then began to propagate this new idea, okay? Which is that all living life, men and Gentiles, both have a chance at salvation. Now, the reason why they do this is so that way they can eventually squeak in this there's only one God theory. I need you guys to understand this. This is deep. There's a reason why the Muslims, the Jews, right, and the Christians, i.e. the Catholics, because they're the first church, the first actual true Gentile church that's established, right? Where do you think the whole one God concept came from? Why do you think they do that? Because they all come from the same damn tribe. And they're all not actually worshiping the Most High God, and they know it. They're worshiping whatever they actually believe in. See, they caused all these wars to happen. Everything they've done all on their own. Now, it's going to take them standing back and being able to say, okay, where did we pick up? I want y'all to get this. By the time the Crusades were over, so-called about to be over, the likes of the people like Christopher Columbus were about to be born. So far, Christopher Colombo, I don't give a damn what his name is. Okay? Did you know he was a Jew? Right. Tough pill for people to swallow. So, right, it would be a Jew that would help orchestrate setting in the 400-year odyssey of our people. Because nobody else knew that we were the children of Israel but those that had been fighting the Holy War. Oh my goodness. Did anybody hear what I just said? No other Gentiles would know that you're the children of Israel. The only Gentiles that would know that are the converts and those that have been that were around the information. No one else would know that. And for hundreds of years, okay, they duped it out as to who was going to get the children of Israel, who was going to get to take them over. And finally they said, okay, look, you guys can take them over there, but we have to have main control. We have to have all pretty much say so. Don't worry. The Black Grecians that were in Egypt, that are still in Egypt, the Black Grecians that got pushed all over, okay, because they had to go live somewhere else. The Black Romans that did all the same thing. Who do you think brought your black asses here when they weren't Black Moors? Speaking a language that you didn't understand anymore. Right. You had been in Africa for over 1,000 years. There's no need to speak Latin there at all. Right. So now you have a people who used to speak a language being taken to a land by people who look more like them that don't speak their language, being left there with cats who are claiming to be them. Backwards. Backwards, backwards, backwards. And it's sick because I don't see how Black people don't see how that's problematic. Brothers and sisters, think about what I'm saying to you. You have a groups of peoples who claim to be of a certain lineage, yet they hold true to none of those things. None of these so-called Jewish people speak Aramaic. None of them practice the law all out. Think about that. Do they not sound like the same $2 Indians that you deal with here? The same $2 Romans who put themselves on TV? Now we're starting to see what happened. Now we're starting to see what really happened. Right. That's right, y'all. They are literally not, they're not who they say they are. Your ancestors spoke Latin. They spoke, they once again, I read that to you. The 30 daggone Latin phrases. Right? You follow what I'm saying? So how is the phrase, get behind me, Satan? Right? Right? How is get behind me, Satan, a Latin term, and your people don't speak Latin, didn't speak Latin all back then? Right. Thank you very much. I used to believe that because the people spoke Latin at a certain point in time, that it couldn't have been the Romans and the Greeks, but the book of Enoch makes it clear that the nation that's like an eagle, right on, would do certain things to us. And the only one that's ever had a symbol of an eagle before these so-called white people here were those Black Romans. And that is a big deal. That is a huge deal when you think about the gravity of it. Because now you're talking about, well, Meech, if you're saying that the Greeks were Black and the Romans were Black, well, when did they become white? Never. The cats who took over those institutions just started calling themselves that, even though they knew that they weren't. That's why those institutions failed. That's why Roman society failed. Right. This is why there's the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages came because the Gentiles that took over all these, that literally ran it all into the ground, they didn't understand how things worked. Right. How do you go from having 325 people who are your Senate to trying to preserve the culture? That doesn't even make sense, man. And then years and years and well over 1,000 years, almost 2,000 years later, you try to establish a government likened to that. Because there had been enough time for once again, there had been enough time for people to forget, number one, where that institution and where that way of life came from. And then number two, there was enough time that had elapsed to where it wouldn't put an overly sour taste in the mouth of some. It might even inspire some, if you will. So for everybody who wants to try to tell me the founding fathers, oh, all these guys they used Latin, they used Roman, and okay, so why'd they speak English then? Right. If we are supposed to be if we're supposed to be under the people who are supposed to be the children of the British, and the British are supposed to be somehow the Roman people, understand the Brits were black and the Romans were black. And somehow now, today, they're both white people, as far as anyone's concerned. Right. The movies that show white Romans invading white British doesn't even make sense, because that would be the only time that could happen is when the Gauls or the barbarians fully took over the Roman society. And this would have been when they were forcibly converting their old tribes to Christianity. That was the whole point of that. I haven't read the Advent of Clovis to y'all. There's no need to read that. But we'll pick up a small part on the rise of the Franks, just so that way you guys get what I'm talking about. And we're going to just roll through something real quick. One moment. The Advent of Clovis. In 481, 15-year-old Clovis, the name of the form is a form of Louis, which became the name of the French royal dynasty, became leader of a small tribe. Since, as we had noticed, the chiefs of Frankish tribes were chosen from a single extended family claiming to be from the god Wotan, Clovis began killing off the other members of his family, and so reducing the number of people who could compete with him for authority. Consolidating the other tribes under his leadership in this fashion, in 5 years he had united the Franks under his personal rule. Stop right there. In 486, he attacks the land of Syagrius, a Roman general holding out the hopes that Western imperial government would be restored. He defeated Syagrius in a single battle and moved his capital to a more central and strategic location of the town of Paris. Stop right there. That's 481, y'all. So those are not the regular Romans. Word? And if it was the regular Romans, these are the last of the nigs. Okay? Right. Why would a white dude who got civilized by the Romans give a damn that their civilization went down? Right. They failed at trying to preserve it. So it doesn't make sense that this dude would be holding out hope unless he's what? One of the real people. See, they don't want to talk about that there were black Romans in 451 AD. If you start to look at history a little differently, you start to see it and say, oh, these guys really only came into power, man, like really 100 years ago. Complete full power like 50 or 60. They haven't even been in power the way that they try to make it seem like. The movies tell a lie. We all know the movies lie. Right. It took the Africans shit to the 60s and 70s. Hell, you could even argue the 80s and the 90s to start complaining about the resources being raped from them. Right. It took them forever to realize that. So they can't make it seem as if, oh, we just had it all on lock this whole time. No, they haven't. They still, their veil of power is so fragile that this is why none of the nations like Russia or China have actually truly ever gone to war. Because barring nukes and barring, totally devastating bombs and stuff like that, right? What could you really do? Right. It's just going to be a long, drawn out battle for years and years and years and years and years to come. That's it. So, and then what? Then you got groups like Africans, so-called Africans, who are able to get their stuff together because y'all fighting each other? No. It took them till almost 1920 to take over Africa completely. Right. So there's no way they've been in power for that long when you really think about it. They haven't. They just want us, they want me and you to believe that they got it like that. Because if we believe that they're not only Romans, and they're the Greeks, and they're the Egyptians, and they're the Israelites, and they're the Phoenicians, they're just everybody. Well, who are we then? Oh, you're just Africans. Even if you don't look African, don't act African, ain't never been to Africa. Right. But somehow they come from a single group. So says this historian. And somehow they're different from one another. Does that make any sense to anybody listening? Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker. I don't know what this brother was thinking. You know what I'm saying? 1753, y'all. Okay? 1753. That man changed everything forever. 2024? Question mark. Is that it? Let's just assume that what has to take place in these next couple years is that they have to come to the realization that they're not who they believe themselves to be. Why aren't they Romans? Why aren't they Greeks? Somebody tell me, cuz. Somebody tell me. Why don't they look like these people? Why don't every single white person have curly hair like those statues do? Like the real stone statues, not the marble ones. Huh? Riddle me that. Greater question. How is it that folks who right now, biologically, scientifically, whatever you want to say, cannot stand out in the sun for very long, but want you to believe that they helped build civilizations in the fucking Mediterranean? I can't believe it, y'all. I mean, sometimes we've been had, right? And I'm willing to say, as your brother, for many years I was had. They had me. Shit, I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought the Romans were white. I thought the Greeks were white. Hell, there was a point in my life I thought Egyptian people were white. Right on? I thought everybody was a white person. And I thought only black people, that's it. We just come from Africa. That's it. And that the one big up they gave was that all life comes from Africa. Right? So the question would be again though. So they try to tell us that, yo, when people lose, this is why they talk about that millions and millions of years. It would take millions of years for people to evolve, right? Because they want you to believe that millions and millions of years, right? It's complete, utter bullshit. Right. Oh, it took millions of years for white people to evolve straight hair and blue eyes and skinny noses. Took millions and millions of years, huh? Didn't just come up out of Middle Earth looking like that already, huh? Didn't just crawl out the middle of a mountain looking like that already, huh? Is y'all hearing me? They want you to really believe that. White Heaven 2024 is about, will they see? They've only inherited lies, vanities, and no thing of any true profit. That's what this is about. Will they see that? Brothers and sisters, it's on you now, because I've sounded the trumpet. It's on you now to place the burden upon yourself to say, where I can't speak up, I will speak up. Because the more times you tell them that the Greeks, the Romans, were all black people, some Negroes and some Negroid, so that way they have understanding that, oh, right, I'm saying that some of them were humans and some of them were humanoid. And I understand that no matter what their visage looks like and no matter what they look like altogether. People don't have to believe that. Let me just go ahead and break one down to y'all again. The same people who will act as if what I'm saying is nothing will go get a DNA test to ensure that their child is their child. And they believe the DNA test, but they don't, but once again, they don't want to believe that the idea of genetics comes from the Bible. You follow what I'm saying? So it's hard to have conversations with people like that who are singular minded. And they're like, well, I still got rent to pay. Well, so does the rest of the world, or a mortgage. They got something to pay. They owe somebody something. Right. Unless they're just number one shot caller. Okay, then. But people are so afraid to hear this. They're so afraid to hear the fact that 2024, this is how we got here, right? Is it really 2024? Number one, that's the real question. Right. Is that really the year that we're really in? It wouldn't matter what year we went into slavery as long as we've been here for 400 fucking years. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. Right. I'm glad that people don't stay here and stick it out for the real. So they missed that beautiful gem right there. Right. Does it really matter? The number of the year doesn't change. 400. 400 will be 400. Do y'all understand what I'm talking about? Quick math. Let me just go ahead and pull up my phone real fast. Go to my calculator. One second. Where you at, my little friend? Where's my tools at, y'all? There we go. Well, I wanted to just do 400 times pin. I'll just do the math real fast. I'll just write it down. Not a big deal. Times 364, right? Okay, so give me one moment. 4, 5, 6, 0, 0. So that would be 145,600 and 400 years times 364 days, right? So 145,600 days. How you doing, sister? I'm just now counting something up where I let it be known. We're at 400 years, sister, in days, times 364. My rough math real fast is 145,600 days. Okay? Now, the reason why that's so important is because I bet you I'm willing to put a whole bunch of money on it. Some white guy knows that same number. They know when they actually enslaved us, y'all. You don't think they fucking know? They know where the 400 pieces come in. Think about that. They know when it's coming. If I can tell you right now, just sitting here, you don't think the Jews, so-called Jews, look, hear me. Those who took over the Jewish people's identity, those who took over the Roman identity, those who maintained being Turks, those who were already Arabs and were always and already Arabs, right? And some of the other dirty sons of Seth, they sat down. They picked the day when they would start the slave trade. They picked the day when they would do all this stuff. Y'all, please listen to me. They know what day it is. That's why 2024 is that the year? Is that when we get to 145,600 days? Is that the year? That's my point. That's why a clock is the most wicked, evil fucking thing there is. Because it took away people's perception of time. Right. Your ancestors spoke Latin. They lived around Romans and Greeks. What language do you think they spoke? Man, that is just, it amazes me. Oh, they spoke their own language, huh? Really? See, it's people who think like that. Where I'm like, dude, there would be no need to know that Paul was speaking in the Hebrew tongue ever if the language that they were speaking in normal happenstance was not Latin. Stop it. And you know how it's Latin, right? Because those 30 Latin phrases that I had, most of them are Roman Latin. Well, guess who was in charge of the Israelites when you pick up in the New Testament? The Romans. But who had their foot on their neck before the Romans? The Greeks. Won't somebody stand back and look at it? My people, why don't any of these Jewish people today speak Latin? They only speak Yiddish. You don't think that's weird? They've never lost their language or their culture, but the only language they speak is fucking Yiddish, dude. And don't nobody think that's weird? But me. I'm the only nigga, apparently, That's why I'd be like, I had to hold this stuff back, because for all the researching that other people do, for all the so-called self-learning that they do, they don't learn a damn thing. And then they put the burden on a shoulder like a brother like me and say, well, what you said just then, I don't agree with. I think white people are the Greeks. I think white people are the Romans. I think you don't know what you're talking about. Yet I read to you explaining that they tried to preserve a culture that they're saying that came from them. Sense does that make? Man, White Heaven 2024. It's deep, y'all. It's deep. Because now you have to start thinking, how many times last year did you actually see the sun going up and down? Think about it. It's 7:38 at night, but the sun's been down for a little while up here. So it's been night already. Whenever I see the light up, it's day. When there's no light, it's night. It's that simple. Right. How we dictate the twilight is the twilight about to become morning or the twilight about to become night? That's simple. But because you think 4:30 a.m. is the morning, even though it's dark out, you count that as a day. Don't worry, I used to have the same problem. Broke myself for that, though. Because how can I count 145,600 days the right way if I'm counting on the time that somebody else implemented and invented is a man-made instrument? I said, how's that even possible? Can you actually even do that? Is that even doable? Is it, brothers and sisters? That's what I'm asking you, is how can you, as people who claim that you have some sort of pride in your intellectual integrity, allow these niggas to insult your intelligence to that degree and not feel insulted? I'm insulted for you. Right, I have to be. Because I may be the single individual person who's going to tell you everything that I just told you tonight. I've repeated myself, but I've repackaged this information nicely. Oh, I have. This is nicely repackaged. We got a little while longer to go, y'all. Look, so let's just hit up this scripture again with young Paul Lesky and read and hear what he says. Those who have ears, let them hear. Come on. And as Paul, verse 37 of chapter 21 of the Acts, and as Paul was to be led into the castle. This is a castle way back then, y'all. Was popping, bro. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee? Who said, canst thou speak Greek? Y'all. He only thought he was Egyptian because he was speaking Aramaic. Art thou not that Egyptian which before days madest an uproar and led us out into the wilderness, 4,000 men that were murderers? Stop right here. Paul never answers that question. Paul skips that question and says, but Paul says, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. And when he had given him license, Paul stood on the stairs and beckoned with the hand unto the people. And when there was made a great silence, he spake unto them in the Hebrew tongue, saying, Men and brethren and fathers, hear ye my defense, which I make now unto you. And they heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, that they kept more silence. Stop right there. The indication. We always thought it was how Paul was dressed. Nope. Don't worry, it hit me as I was reading this the first time a little bit, but the second time it's clear. The indication that Paul was Egyptian was that he was speaking Aramaic when he got the 4,000 guys to go out into the wilderness. That's right. Because what does he do right then? He goes from speaking Greek or Latin to speaking in the Hebrew tongue. Come on. Right. He's trying to. Why do you think dude is like us? Why are they even mad, bro? I didn't even know you spoke Greek. Now he's seeing like, oh, he might have said something. But he totally ignored the fact that he called him an Egyptian. Right. Put that he well, he did the Heisman on that one, didn't he? He Heisman that question, got it on out of there, and changed the dude's whole mentality by speaking the Hebrew tongue, by trying to stress that I'm really a Jew because I speak the Hebrew tongue. That don't make you a Jew. Because the sons of Edom, the children of Edom speak Hebrew. The Ammonites speak Hebrew. The Moabites speak Hebrew. The Assyrians, depending on their sect, speak Hebrew. The Syrians speak Hebrew. Hell, nigga, there are cultures that are considered Hamitic that speak Hebrew. Let me stop. So the fact that this man could tell the folks, tell all the people that in the Hebrew tongue, they're listening. But y'all got to understand, he never says who his father is. Let me read to you. I am verily a man which am a Jew, born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous toward God as ye are all this day. That can't be right, because remember, he had Stephanus baptized. He had Stephen stoned. Anyway, and I persecuted this way unto the death, and binding and delivering into prisons both men and women. Stop right there. I need to read nothing else about this joker. Where does your God tell you to deliver your people up to prisons or to death? Where? There's laws to do that. What Stephen did was not punishable by death. Man. And he was going by the name of Shaul when he was a persecutor. The dude changed his whole name. Okay, could y'all imagine this? You meet a guy one day, he's going by the name of, I don't know, Jack, right? And then Jack does some real messed up stuff. Then the next time you see him, he's like, no, my name's John. You're like, I could have sworn, man, you look just like this guy named Jack I know. Even though John and Jack are said to be, you know, Jack is supposed to be a damn nickname for John. I don't know how. Oh, I don't know how. But that's the difference between languages, I guess. I don't know. But does anybody other than me find great concern in the full? It's a full-blown attempt to keep everybody off the ball. Now, let me pull up something real quick because I have to pull this up again. I have to read this. Okay. Um, it matters that y'all really understand the Greeks and the Romans during the book of the Maccabees were around the Israelites. What is the culture linguistically of the Greeks and the Romans? Right. You can't not communicate, not understanding one another. I must stress this point. If I don't do this, I failed. Okay? And that means everything I've said tonight is for nothing. Forget that. Listen to this. Verse 1 of chapter 8 of the Maccabees, of the first Maccabees. Now Judas had heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with them all that came unto them. Stop right there. How do you think the barbarians were able to get in with the Romans? Let me read something to y'all again. It says that they had become sophisticated and partially Romanized. Are y'all hearing me? Sophisticated and partially Romanized. That's talking about the rise of the Franks. Right. If I'm reading for the time of the Maccabees, for the days of the Maccabees, where it's established, okay, that the Romans would take in confederati at all levels, right? That means that the Gauls and the barbarians could have either been beat into submission or simply offered their services to the Romans. Right. People are like, what's that got to do with anything? The white barbarians fooled the Romans into thinking that they were on their side by showing the brute level of savagery they would practice on their own kinsmen. The Romans believed that because they showed no indifference to their kinsmen, that they indeed felt no type of way about what happened with them. But in fact, these barbarians felt some type of way. And they planned it calculatedly because they knew that they couldn't beat the Romans straight up. So when the Romans were fighting against other kingdoms, against other peoples, they turned on the Romans. This is the only way the Romans fell, y'all. Talking about, so in the middle of a great war, your own people start attacking you, or who you think are your own people. Guys who you've put in positions that you normally wouldn't have put, they would have never been in that position. But because the Romans practice mercy and they don't just smash you to death, they don't just kill every single one of your people, word, like they could, you have the chance to join league with them. So what ends up happening is what? Is that they join league with the Romans, right? Exactly. Brothers and sisters, now that you know that your ancestors spoke Latin, and that's not a question, let me read the very first part of the book of the Maccabees again. And let me go ahead and read the Greece timeline to you again, just so everybody knows that we're on the same page. We're going to skip down to where Alexander the Great takes over, right? It's way down in 336 BCE. The links are on the page or in the whatever that is, the super chat thing, the chat. Check this out. Alexander becomes the king of Macedonia, right? First off, Alexander's a Macedonian, but we're going to talk about all this. Chapter 1, verse 1 of the Maccabees. And it happened after that, Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. So he's the first king over all of Greece. Thank you very much. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. Now we're just going to skip forward again. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus, the king who had been a hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. Now, we're going to go ahead and read. Now, he reigns in 336 BCE. So this is a 200-year difference, so-called, right? I guess you could act like that's not a big deal, but that is a big deal because that means that there might be other time periods that they could. The swaying of 200 years makes it fucking difference, dude, and how you see time. And so if the people who are working against you are working on this time and they're not working on this BCE time, you're in trouble. One moment. Where we at? I'm trying to see where Alexander dies. Give me one moment. Death of Alexander. Where we at, cuz? Where's my nigga? Bro, I'm trying to tell y'all, man. 332. There we go. 323. Death of Alexander the Great. They have it all. It looks so funny over here. 323 BCE. 12 years, whatever, 12 and a half years, right? Because remember, we read we pulled it up on Google the other day. Or maybe I didn't pull it up with y'all, but I pulled it up. And, excuse me, if you look it up on Google, your phone right now, you say Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great.
According to Wikipedia, Alexander III of Macedon, commonly known as Alexander the Great, was a king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon and a member of the Argead dynasty.
How long did Alexander the Great rule?
12 years and 8 months. Here's a summary from Britannica. Alexander was taken ill after a prolonged...
No. We'll need to do all that. We'll need her to tell y'all all that, okay? She's done enough, okay? If y'all think that the 12 years that he reigned and the 12 years that I'm reading online are different, and y'all think these are different Alexanders, ooh, y'all in trouble. You're in trouble. You're in big trouble. You're not in trouble by me, you're in trouble by yourself. That's a fact. Right. So understand that this guy that you're hearing about, were the Macedonian, started off some stuff that he doesn't even realize where it was going to go. He couldn't have known. He couldn't have known, y'all. Right. I need y'all to get this. What would it profit the nations to enslave the children of Israel or to send them to be enslaved by those that are not a nation, pretty much, right? Don't worry, like I said, black Greeks and black Romans, but black Greeks especially came to America and helped out at first. But those aren't people who knew what the hell was going on. Those are just guys who just knew how to guide boats and keep them from getting, smashed in the Atlantic. That would have been one of the most major reasons why they were going. Need all y'all to recognize this. The 1,000 and some years change period that went from the Israelites being pushed out of Judea. Give me one moment. When the Romans pushed the Israelites out of Judea. One moment. Let's just see. Let's see if I won't get a time period. I'm only looking for time periods, y'all. So we're thinking 37 BCE, 4 BCE, something like that. It could be after that, right on. It could be 120 AD. I couldn't really care less. It doesn't really matter. The point that I'm trying to make to y'all is that when they totally kicked the Israelites out of Judea, that doesn't begin the 400-year Odyssey. Now, I need y'all to understand this. The white Gentiles that are in control of this land right now did not understand the 400-year Odyssey. The Gentiles that call themselves Jews understood the 400-year Odyssey. The black Arabs understood the 400-year Odyssey. Are y'all starting to get what I'm saying right now? Those converts knew what the fuck they were doing. Right. I could contend that the Civil War happened because these motherfuckers realized that if we keep these niggas enslaved, cuz we're fucked. Right. But they don't realize we're still in give me one moment. No, I'm not going to read the King James Version to do that to you. I'm going to read the Septuagint to do that to you. One moment. Genesis chapter 15, right? Verse 7. On down. And he said to him, I am the God that brought thee out of the land of the Chaldeans, so as to give thee this land to inherit. And he said, Master and Lord, how shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said to him, take for me an heifer in her 3rd year, and a she-goat in her 3rd year, and a ram in his 3rd year, and a dove and a pigeon. So he took to him all these, and divided them in the midst, and set them opposite each other. But the birds he did not divide, even upon the divided parts of them. And Abraham sat down by them, or drove them away. And about sunset, a trance fell upon Abraham, and lo, a great gloomy terror falls upon him. And it was said to Abraham, thou shalt surely know that thy seed shall be a sojourner in a land not their own. Does it say a slave, my niggas? Let's read that again. Thou shalt surely know that thy seed shall be a sojourner in a land not their own, and they shall enslave them and inflict them and humble them 400 years. Doesn't say you're going to be enslaved for 400 years. You're going to sojourn for 400 years. I need you to get that. I need you to get that. If it wanted to say enslave, and don't worry, I knew it was going to say that, so that's why I went there. Follow me. If it wanted to say you were going to be a slave for 400 years, it would have said that. Said, no, you're going to be a sojourner. That's right. So this is why all your years here have not been spent in hardcore bondage. Man, I'm fucked. You know why? Because I realized no matter me reading that, it doesn't matter. I just realized I care, so I get it. If you don't care or you just don't get it because you can't get it, I'm sorry. But that's clear as day. I'll read it one more time so nobody's confused. And it was said to Abraham, thou shalt surely know that thy seed shall be a sojourner in a land not their own. No? Do you not sojourn in this land right now, nigga? Fix your lips to say something stupid. And they shall enslave them and afflict them and humble them 400 years. And the nation whomsoever they shall serve, I will judge. And after this, they shall come forth hither with much property. Now we know that the Gentiles are not a nation, so he ain't talking about them. Right. He's talking about the stranger within. That is a real nation. Holding us down and oppressing us. Because they're what? They are higher up above than us. And what? The wicked devise wicked devices. I'm not going to get carried away on my spiritual diatribe. Y'all just don't know. Like the old Jewish guys used to say, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Just like that. Okay? Just like that. It was just like that, y'all. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Y'all ain't never seen those movies? Those old school movies with the Jewish guy telling the story? I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. But I done seen a many of movies just like that. But you know, I'm a different kind of cat, so I just move differently. I do things differently. I appreciate history. That's right. So for those of you who didn't realize, this right now, this is the best of times. This right now is the worst of times. Can you dig that? That's right. You don't get off the hook just because you let yourself off the hook. Just because you okayed yourself doesn't mean you good to go. I'm telling you, I am informing you with my energy that is meant to be used for such a purpose. If 2024 is the year, brothers and sisters, you do realize that we're only counting today for 2021. I don't know if it's all 2024, but let's just assume that it is, right? 363, 33, it's 900 plus 180. That makes it 1080 plus 12. That makes it 1092. And since we are technically on the 24th day of this month, that would be 55 days so far out of 364. So that leaves us with 309. And we're going to add that to our 1092. So 300 is 1392 plus another 9 is 1401. So let's assume that we're 1,401 days away from whatever could actually jump all the way off. Are you ready for that, brothers and sisters? Because you have to understand we're only so many days from 1,000, from 145,600. Excuse me. You understand that? We're only so many suns up and sundowns from that. No. That's how many days they had control of us. That's how many days that they're going to have control altogether and not a day longer. So when you have jackasses with flags that say 1526, bitch, you can't count. That's what that tells me. Anyway. I won't call your babies kids. My God said to sacrifice kids and to eat them. So I know he wasn't talking about your babies when he said that. You understand? I have to be vicious with y'all like this. Otherwise, you might not really respect it and really put it into your minds and to put it into your hearts that, hey, you don't get to say what the fuck you want to say and do what the fuck you want to do. It's not how it works. Nigga, you are in white heaven. This ain't white supremacy, cuz. You don't need white supremacy when you're in white heaven. When everything that you do rules, it's everything doesn't matter. I don't need to call myself supreme. I'm in my heaven. There's no need to be reminded that I'm supreme. This is heaven for me. Stupid. Right. But who am I? I'm just Nig Man. Right. Telling y'all some stuff that I just have to assume you already knew. I have to assume that everybody already knew that we were going to be here for 400 years, not as slaves, but as sojourners. So says the scripture. Right. And that the bondage in Egypt was 430 years. If I was an evil genius, and only if I was an evil genius, I might ask for someone to distort time. So that way, just in case, if for whatever reason, Just one of them figured out how time really works. That we'll still win by throwing them off with our mechanism. Because our mechanism will tell them the time, not the sun or the moon, not God's creations, but a man's creation will tell them what time it is. Woo! And y'all wonder why I'm so high strong about this shit. What else is there for me to be? When I get too old to care this much, you'll wish I could care this much again. If there's that much life left to live. Y'all better be worried about it. I'm an excellent comprehender. So where I might not be great at math, I understand how to put my numbers together. 145,600. Repeat that to yourself about 10 times, y'all. So hopefully you remember it. 145,600. That would be the number of days our people would have to be here before the Most High God comes to get us. Don't worry. We're going to get up out of here sooner than y'all think. But it'll be too late for some anyway. They'll have sold out or given up. They'll have done something that is unforgivable by that point, and it won't even matter. So before we close out on this first part of White Heaven 2024 with the question mark, I ask everybody right now, one time, does anyone have any questions about what was talked about tonight, about anything, before I roll on out? You know what I mean, in the next 5 or 10 minutes, because I'm not going to drag this out all night, because I want to be able to do my Jewish side of it next and totally tear these so-called Israeli people a new one. This probably end up being 3 parts, because I'm going to have to pretty much show how these guys, they don't speak Latin. They never spoke Latin. They come from people who don't speak this language, and they were never forced to speak that language. I can contend that the Israeli spoke Yiddish while they were the Assyrians. No way of proving that, but I do have this thing here saying that all the Germanic tribes spoke a certain kind of language, and they are most indefinitely a Germanic tribe if they are of the Baltic or Slavic descendancy. So how do their eyes turn brown? Huh? How? How their hair turn brown? Are you hearing me? How did all those things happen? Why don't they speak Aramaic? Why don't they speak Latin? How do they know who the hell they are? If the Most High God said that his people wouldn't know who they were. Don't worry, we're going to get all the way into that too. I had to build it up, but we had to really stress. And I know people are like, you didn't really prove that they were Greeks bringing them here. Calm down, don't worry. We'll get to tie all that stuff together. But I don't want to take away from the story of the Jews, because if I take away from the story of the Jews, then y'all might not appreciate how those black Greeks who were in Egypt brought your black asses here in the first place. Right. It's all, thank you. It's not just one thing. There's a lot going on here. And I can't tell you all in one hit. You wouldn't learn it all in one hit, nor would you enjoy it all in one hit. So, since there are no questions, no, not one, and I feel swell about that, I'm going to go ahead and give y'all a little freestyle piece. Brother Wickham would like for all of y'all to know that 100 years ago, they did the most atrocious, atrocious, hateful, and catastrophic things that most black people don't realize. They never did to slaves because they didn't have the technology to do it to slaves. They couldn't airstrike black people because they didn't have planes back then. Right on. Neither did we have thriving cities. So when they tell you that they airbombed just the Black Wall Street, they airbombed every probably successful black city that there was. They killed, they raped, they pillaged, they did all that. They tore every single one of them down. They left not one standing. And of those that they couldn't just murder and kill right away, maim right away, they put highways and things like that through the shit. Exactly. We don't have to go toe to toe with y'all. And how we'll get y'all up out of here is we'll get your own people to do the work for us. What, you gonna kill them? There might be some fighting, but now the white man gets to come in and take your black ass to jail. Anyway, I just don't know if people really understand what happened to their ancestors. And for everybody, it's not everybody's ancestors. I understand that. But do people understand that every time you bring up Martin Luther King, because you bring up the Black Wall Street and you bring up George Carver, you bring up Lewis Latimer, whether you want to or not, right on? Every time you bring up something that black people suffered or went through, because you bring up all the black greats, whether you want to or not, you can't not do it. It's inevitable. I told my cousin the other day, you can't believe in the Most High God and not believe in the book. If you do one, you must, inadvertently or advertently, you do the other, whether you realize it or not. You can't believe in him and say, I don't believe in the book. The book is real. Don't worry. You can hold the book up to the book. So if this don't match what the book said before, throw that out. But this part of the book you can go with. Is what I'm not saying that I'm not telling you that I know all about the scripture, but I'm telling y'all this much. The same way people put the time in to go and become a badass NBA player or a badass hockey player, I put the time in to be somebody who can really read the scripture and understand it, because I have nothing to gain. I don't gain anything from this word, but my own satisfaction that first off, I shared the message and I sounded the trumpet. And secondly, is because when I speak it out loud, I get to hear the thought. And there's things that I think when I hear my words out loud that I don't get to think when I just read to myself. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but like, once I read for the second time out loud, canst thou speakest Greek? That was it. Right. For him to think he was Egyptian, he thought he was Aramaic. For him to thought Paul was Egyptian, Paul was speaking Aramaic before. And the confirmation is that Paul says that, no, I'm a Jew, and goes into speaking the Hebrew tongue. Does he speak to the tongue that the Jews actually know? No, because guess what? The Israelites are Hebrews. So the Hebrew tongue would have been that's their go-to. All the real Hebrews know what that is. That's telling you that the people who were standing around were not no Pharisees, were not no Assyrians or Hasidians, were not no Israelis. Because guess what? Why would an Israeli who can't speak the actual Hebrew tongue bother to listen to that? And what do they gain from hearing you talk and they can't understand? Black people. I know you want to believe that $80,000 education that you paid for or are paying for, that $50,000, whatever education that you're paying for, that you believe is worth more than every word that I spit out tonight. I tell you this much: you lied to yourself if that's what you believe. What I just told y'all tonight took years to put together, years. And I'm not going to repeat myself like this again. I'm just going to move forward. I can't. What I said tonight is the truth. 2024 is a question mark. Are we going to get to that year? I believe so. But I believe not only in that there's going to be a reckoning that most people get to see and they say, oh, wow, didn't see that coming. But I'll have seen it coming because I'm going to be like, what else could they do? Black people. Do y'all really understand how special you are? They literally got us for 145,600 days. And you know what's funny about that? Remember when I told you guys that I literally counted 1% of that. Remember? I said I think it's roughly 1,460 days left. Remember that? Remember that? Do y'all remember that now? When I was like, I think there's roughly 1,460 days, 1,460, right? A few years. Do y'all remember that? No matter what the fuck you say, 364 times 400 is 145,600. So no matter what you niggas say, that's all the time they had us for. What would be the chances, the odds, the compound probability, and I end on this note, that when I multiplied by 5 days, by the time that was left, I got exactly 1% of the time that's here for 4 years. What are the chances of that, y'all? I salute you, and I'm out. Oh, yeah.